Happy Monday, everybody. Thank you for stopping out to check out the awesome episode tonight. We're actually recording this real quick a little earlier in the day, hence Max stopping by. He says, "What's up?" He always wants to be on the shows, but he's usually in bed by like 6. So we wanted to take advantage of him being up. He wanted to hop on, say hi, and get in on the podcast action. So here it is, buddy. Nothing too fancy. See, got anything to say? His heart is going a little quicker than it was a few minutes ago. Anyhow, just wanted to give a quick thanks to the folks involved that have been making the podcast happen. That'd be our friends over at Higher Love. Super appreciate everything you guys do and helping partner with the podcast, the movement. You guys have been great to work with. Appreciate you helping out at Lebowski Fest with the goodie bags. They're very well received. We have a couple left over and going to be taking those to the restaurant I go for breakfast all the time. They love you guys as well. So again, shout out to Higher Love. If you haven't found your Higher Love, check them out. They're in the UP. They're worth a drive. Don't forget to use the promo code because they hook you guys up because they're awesome like that. Man, I don't really know what to say about the podcast sit down we got to do here with Senator Agard, other than it was just like as we were going through it the whole time, I was like, oh my gosh, we got to like make that a snippet. We got to make that a snippet. Like, I think it went really well. Really appreciate Senator Agard's time sitting down with us, allowing us to ask the questions and to give us her honest feedback on them. So, without me talking too much more, again, we did get this recorded late last week. We wanted to respect Senator Agard's time, that she was in her office and not calling her outside of work or anything. So, again, shout out to her for sitting down to do this with us, and look forward to sharing it with you guys. So, with that, I'm sure this guy wants to go play some toys, even though he looks kind of grumpy right now. I don't think he likes the computer screen. He's going to like this interview, though. So let's get that rolling, and hope you guys enjoy. Leave your feedback in the comments. All right, everybody, have a great night and enjoy the show. Senator Agard, I'd like to thank you for your time sitting down with us today. We've got a lot of feedback from the community, and especially in the case of what you've been working on for cannabis and everything. It's been delightful to have somebody that we're able to go talk to or somebody to kind of look up to when we're talking about what we're hoping can be done at the state level and everything. So appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. We got a few questions together. But first of all, if you could kind of give us a little background just on maybe how you got into where you are today here in a nice office like this. Was it always kind of a dream to end up into the political world where you could kind of help, a large group of people, or if you just give us a little background on you?
Absolutely. So, first of all, thank you for caring so much about the people of Wisconsin to the point that you're leading into this conversation. It's really clear to me that Wisconsin is ready for cannabis reform.
Sure.
And this is something that brings really diverse groups of people together into the room. It's not about who you vote for, or even if you vote. It's a matter of this is the right thing. And prohibition didn't work when alcohol, and it's not working with cannabis here in Wisconsin. So back to your question.
Sure.
My name is Melissa Agard, and I am proud to represent the 16th Senate District here in Wisconsin, which is primarily the eastern edge of Dane County. I represent part of the city of Madison, and then lots of other communities as well. And I've served in the legislature for over a decade, and before that, I had the privilege and honor of serving in local government on the county board here in Dane County. I'm a rare bird in that I was born and raised here.
Okay.
In the community that I live in now, and that I'm raising my own kids.
Yeah.
And I think it is clear that Wisconsin is a place historically where people care about one another, and what moves us forward, right? Like we, before we were even a state, we were helping each other build barns. We were the first state to have kindergarten. We were the first state, Earth Day was born here.
Okay.
Protecting our environment and unions. Really, the power of collectiveness is part of Wisconsin's culture and heritage. And if you take all of that together, I think that Wisconsinites today can learn a little bit from our past, and that is really taking the time to get to know each other and share space, have conversations. And I'm excited about our conversation today. I never thought that I would be working in this building.
Okay.
Being a kid that grew up on free and reduced lunch at school and food stamps, the Capitol was a place that I came on field trips.
Sure.
And it was full of fancy people, and they had fancy haircuts, and their shoes made click-clacking sounds on the marble floors, and they had, smelled different because they had probably hair products and cologne and perfume on, and leather bags, it was a place that I saw these fancy people doing things that, government is important, and they are working in there, but it was also the 4th grade field trip that everyone looked forward to. So it's a trip, really, to drive up East Wash and see this building that I'm coming to work in every single day. And it was a promise that I made to my community when I ran for office the very first time, to lift up the voices of people, even on topics that might not be mainstream or people that are really ready for.
Sure.
And after I was elected to the state assembly, I kept hearing from folks about the harms of cannabis prohibition in Wisconsin. And this is like a decade ago, more than a decade ago, right? So the world was really different then, right? We had 2 legal states, and there was a lot of kind of head nodding and talking behind your hand and kind of coded language.
There weren't too many of these around here?
People were not wearing their proud legalized Wisconsin gear, and especially not on the sidelines of the kids' soccer games, right? Or at grocery stores. But after I had do a lot of work outside of the Capitol building, quite frankly, in the community.
I see that.
I know being in here is hard for people, right? So you want to get out.
It's a little intimidating for sure.
And people just kept coming up and talking to me, whether it was a mom whose kid lost their scholarship because they were pulled over for not using their turn signal and ended up having a roach in their car, and they lost their scholarship just like that. Not even because they were impaired, because they were in possession of that. Or the parents of a very medically fragile child who has peers with the same disease in other states that is able to access cannabis for relief, and they can't in Wisconsin without being felons, watching out for their kids. Or farmers who are desperate to diversify their crops because they're not making as much on beans and corn. And maybe they're getting a little older and they don't want to be farming hundreds of acres at a time, but they want to still get their hands in the dirt and honor their family and our agriculture heritage in Wisconsin. Young folks who have moved out of the state and went to Colorado or California, and they've learned about the cannabis industry, and they want to bring that ingenuity back and invest in our main streets in Wisconsin and provide good paying jobs to their friends and neighbors in their communities, and they can't do that right now. People have been negatively impacted by racial profiling in Wisconsin. We are the worst state when it comes to racial disparities, and our cannabis laws are not helping that. In some communities, it's somewhere between 4 and 10 times more likely that you're going to be popped for possession. So not distribution, not consumption, possession, simply because you have brown skin in the state of Wisconsin. So you bring all that together, right? You tie it up in a bow, and it's clear that something is not working. Now, can you just wave a flag and say we're going to legalize this plant?
Sure.
There are harms, right? Like we know right now because of the Farm Bill, we need regulation in order to keep 100%. Things moving forward. So I connected all those dots, and it became really clear we needed to put a bill together. So here we are. We're still on that journey.
That's awesome, because I can tell you, and I think we've touched on this a couple times with you, but if it weren't for seeing you and what you were doing with cannabis when I was working in the hemp industry, that really just turned a light bulb on to me. Like, there are people that care at the Capitol building, and that's not a knock on anybody or anything, but just the way Wisconsin is set up with its laws, it felt like it's, I never thought that I'd find anybody I could talk to. So I can say that without a doubt, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for meeting you and just starting to follow you and what you're doing. And there's a lot of people that personally you've touched their lives with how you listened to them or reached out to them. So it's just an honor to be here, and I appreciate the time and everything you've done up to this point. And hopefully we can do something on our side as the people and getting the voice together to get this thing to the finish line. So
absolutely, that's what it's about. We all need to lean in, right? Democracy is about each of us doing our part.
Correct.
It's not something that just happens.
Right.
It doesn't just happen in the Capitol building in Madison.
Sure.
It happens because each of us believe that the world could be a little bit better, and we're willing to lean in and sacrifice a bit.
100%. Awesome. And real quick, you touched on family and raising around. Don't we have a birthday today?
Oh, yeah, my oldest son turned 26.
Oh, all right.
Unfortunately, he moved to New York.
Okay.
Because they have legal weed.
Sure.
I mean, that wasn't the only reason.
No.
But I'm sure that...
No, I feel that. So, well, right on. So I just had a couple questions. Well, a few. We'll see how many we can get through here. Don't want to take too much of your time. But are we close to, like, if I did my math correctly, which I'm not good with math, I wanted you to just give a quick overview of your quest with the legalization bill that you drafted, and what keeps you motivated. We kind of touched on that, but are we also at like the 10-year anniversary roughly when you're first?
Yeah, so we put the bill out for responsible adult use policy with a medicinal component about 10 years ago here in Wisconsin. And the landscape has changed so much, right? When we first put the bill out, there were 2 states that had legalized for recreational adult responsible usage. Okay. And now there are 24 states, with Ohio being the most recent state that legalized on referendum. And states are going about it legalizing in different ways. Initially, it was through ballot initiatives where the people of those communities could put something on the ballot and they could bypass the legislature because the will of the people should be heard.
Yes.
And for a while, there was a thought that states that did not have ballot referendum possibilities were never going to legalize cannabis. Sure. But we've seen that to not be true, right? Even our neighboring states here in the Midwest, Illinois and Minnesota, are states that legalized through legislative action. Okay. Michigan, it was a ballot initiative. But certainly having Wisconsin continue to be an island of prohibition, that we're literally surrounded by these other states. As I said, 24 states legalized for responsible adult usage. Wisconsin is one of the 6 most restrictive states in the nation. But at the same point, you wouldn't necessarily know that to be true if you were to drive through any town, any city, any municipality in the state of Wisconsin, because you see so many businesses that are selling THC, CBD products. And, this is ultimately because of the Farm Bill. At the same point, there's no regulation in the industry to keep the wheels on, to keep consumers really protected. The Farm Bill is a great thing, but we need to keep this momentum changing, because clearly the ground isn't opening up and swallowing people in Wisconsin who are cannabis consumers, whether it is that they're producing or purchasing from any of these shops that are in Wisconsin, or they're getting in their cars and driving to a legal state, or maybe even purchasing on the illicit market. The cannabis industry is pretty robust in Wisconsin, but lacking regulation. And ultimately, regulation keeps all of us safer. It keeps our roads safer, it keeps our kids safer, it allows business owners to have safety and protections. And maybe we'll talk about this a little later. I hope I'm not jumping the gun, so to speak. But it traveled around the state last year doing this grassroots tour, and stopped in dozens of different businesses and local watering holes and libraries, and talked to hundreds and hundreds of people across the state of Wisconsin. And I have never experienced such a broad, diverse group of people who are coming together to advocate for something that they're passionate about, and literally saying, we want more government. Exactly. We want more government. Right. In order for this to happen, we know that having protections and provisions at the government level will make sure that this industry can be robust, it can be healthy, but that it actually will be safer for all of us.
No, it is a neat, and that's where when you had stopped out too, like, because I had started looking into some of our competition at the previous place I worked at, obviously being in the cannabis industry in Wisconsin. Because before I got into the industry, I had no idea. I thought everything was CBD, and which definitely has its place and its benefits. And once I got into the industry and realized how many places there were, and then you get customers like, hey, that I tried this same thing from over there, but it was, and that's when it came to that's when I realized, like, there needs to be some checks and balances, and that's just part of it. It doesn't have to be, it's got to be the right way, right? Like, you don't need to check something 100 times, maybe down the assembly line or getting from the farm to the store. But again, I think having somebody like you with a good understanding to make sure that framework is done correctly, and to work with seeing you talk to these people already, it's seemingly every day you're kind of at a new spot and introducing somebody or somebody's business. So I know when that day comes, we'll have the right people in the.
We'll be ready.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Let's
Yep,
be ready.
Yep, 100%.
Because, like you said, the genie's out of the bottle.
Yes.
Right? It's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's going to matter when.
Right.
And really the details, the
Yep.
devil being in the details,
Sure.
right? I mean, we'll probably talk about this a little later, but there's been a number of different policies presented over that more than 10 years that I've put my bill out from Democrats and Republicans in Wisconsin in regards to cannabis. And, we need to have these really gritty, thoughtful conversations in order to be able to get it right. But we can't get distracted by the shiny objects.
Sure.
We need to make sure that we're really paying attention to what this bill is going to do and how is it going to impact people. Is it going to provide more liberty and more safety and more protections and opportunity, or is it going to harm? And how do we set that table? How do we cross that finish line?
Definitely. I agree with that. Could you touch base on some major milestones and challenges you faced over the last 11 years in advocating for this bill?
Oh, boy.
Because I'm sure you've been through.
Yeah, I mean, I think that some of the biggest challenges that we have is misinformation.
Sure.
Because cannabis has been prohibited in our country for over 100 years, right?
Yep.
Over 100 years now. We haven't kept up with the research that other countries have done. But as Americans, we want to be able to fall back on our research and our science. And we just don't have that. And it's many people see cannabis as an emerging plant, but literally, I mean, there's some indications that it may have been in the pyramids, right? I mean, it's been around for a long time.
Sure.
So we need to catch up to, as policymakers, where people are, the ordinary people of the state of Wisconsin. That said, that there is a lot of misinformation out there, even among ordinary people. I think the war on drugs was really challenging for these conversations, simply where cannabis is scheduled at the federal level. It's on a list of pretty scary stuff, that are its neighbors on this piece of paper. And, thank goodness President Biden is encouraging the federal government to reconsider how it is classified. And hopefully that opens up some doors there. But also, reefer madness movements, super challenging. Do you remember that commercial? Maybe you're a little younger than me.
I think I've seen
there was
it,
like a hot cast iron skillet, and it said, "This is your brain." And then they cracked an egg, and they were like, "Here's your brain on drugs," and it's sizzling and melting, and that didn't help, right? So certainly, I think our biggest challenges in order to cross the finish line with this bill is helping to educate people, but figuring out where that fair, balanced information is going to come from.
100%. I agree with that. And obviously we'll do everything we can on our part that, from signature collections to hopefully we get that public hearing where we can show up and there's just so many people that cannabis has helped in, like you said, such a diverse way. The plant is so amazing when you hear the different things it helps different people with, because all of our bodies are different. So really looking forward to anything we can do in the future to help with this bill. So
absolutely.
How do you envision cannabis legalization impacting Wisconsin socially and economically?
Oh boy. I think it will be a good thing for the state of Wisconsin. I think one of the things that I have had people say to me is, you just want to legalize this plant so you can get more tax money from people. That is not true. That's not just. Certainly, there has been no state, and I can't find an example of a community that has legalized cannabis and just been like, it's legal without any regulations or protections on it, right? So, I think it is important that we take into consideration all of the side effects of legalization, and make sure that we are actually increasing knowledge and safety and protections, real opportunity, and addressing the wrongs, the ills, whether it's racial disparities and profiling, or very sick children not having access to relief, or your grandparent who's dying of cancer, and if they were able to have access to cannabis, and oftentimes families will find a way to get it to them, and they're able to eat and sleep and be relaxed, but the family is really wringing their hands and concerned about potential legal action, right? So there are so many benefits on a social level, as well as on a humanistic level with legalizing. And I think the cherry on top, frankly, is the additional tax revenue for the state of Wisconsin.
Sure.
I think it's a positive benefit, but really not the purpose behind my investment in this.
That's that makes a lot of sense to me because, and like I haven't heard it, I've obviously seen over the members and the comments and stuff. I've never seen any complaint about taxing. Taxing comes with it, as we see in the industry across the nation. And instead, I do see a lot of people that are like, well, yeah, let's get that tax money here. Like even a lot of people that have commented, like, I don't use cannabis, but I know what all the tax revenue we're losing by not legalizing. So.
Well, and certainly we need to be thoughtful about our taxing. There are some states that have, I think, overtaxed.
Yes, definitely.
And that reinforces the illicit market.
Yep.
And I think for all safety, our hope is that, even with speed limits, people still speed, right? Even with laws about wearing your seatbelt, people still don't wear their seatbelt. So even if we legalize cannabis, there will still be an illicit market 100%. In Wisconsin. Sure. But you want to shrink it down. Right. And clearly people in Wisconsin are fine with taking their hard-earned money and their valuable time and driving to a legal state to purchase. Because if you look at information that's provided by our surrounding states, they're earning tens of millions of dollars of just tax money. That's not even the economic money that's going into the wages and the jobs and all the restaurants and the gas and all of that. So, we are missing out here in Wisconsin. And I think it is also clear that, people, they do value regulation. Yep. Because they are driving to these other states, right? Yep. So how do you find that balance in the tax structure? It's important. That's one of the details. That's one of the things in a bill that was recently introduced by the Republicans in the legislature here in Wisconsin that I believe is really smoke and mirrors. It's not a true medicinal bill. They never had the votes to be able to get it across the finish line. But the amount of money that they put in their bill for people to even enter the industry is extraordinary. It's extraordinary. It's preventing small family farms from being able to enter the industry with those dollars.
It seems like most farms are smaller farms. And when you're talking big money up front, I feel like, Wisconsin is like 3 big cities and then a bunch of farmland. So definitely, I feel what you're saying. It makes you think.
So those types of details are important. When you're putting the policy forward, you want to do it in a way that ordinary Wisconsinites can get it on, actually, 100%. Right? Because then they're going to have more teeth in it. They're not going to go to whatever their favorite shop was in Illinois anymore. Sure. They'll stay here.
Yep, 100%. Love to hear that. What are the key differences, we kind of touched on there for a minute, between your bill and the proposal introduced by Speaker Voss?
Well, there's a lot.
There's a lot. We've been able to share quite a bit of it, but just in kind of...
And I think you had a recent podcast that really went into the depth of it. Yep, but ultimately, I think the biggest difference between these bills is the bill that I continue to introduce is a bill that's been drafted by the people of Wisconsin. It's because of conversations that I've had with people in the state of Wisconsin addressing their fears. How is this going to impact our kids? What about impaired driving? And it's addressing dreams. Like, how do I own a business? How do I become a farmer? If I want to be a manufacturer of products, what do I do? And that to me is the real difference. Governing is about bringing people together and agreeing that there's a problem we want to solve. Sure. And once we've agreed what that problem is that we want to solve, figuring out how your path and my path can intertwine with each other and get to that point. And it's the give and take, and it's about being gritty and thoughtful, and not getting your way all the time. And the proposal that Speaker Voss put out is Speaker Voss's proposal. Sure. It is not the proposal of the people of Wisconsin. This isn't what they're asking for.
I agree with that, and I think you can kind of tell it's interesting now in doing what I do with just trying to help pass information to the people, try to get the voice together of the people to present to policymakers and stuff. And it was just interesting to see there were a few people who, when all you read is the headline, which is the Republican GOP introduces a medical bill, that obviously was like, oh, this is awesome, this is great. And it's like you need, like you said, the details. And that's where I would agree. When you look at the details of the bill, it feels like yours is very well thought out, and that would make sense where you're working with the people of the state to find out about the different topics and stuff. So I think you hit the nail on the head with the summary of the differences between the two bills.
It's the biggest, and there's a lot of details that are different as well.
Sure.
Right? And
No,
I think my intent is that mine passes.
Sure, 100%. Based on your experience, what are the most important lessons learned in the fight for cannabis legalization?
Well, I think this is a good lesson, not just with cannabis legalization, but just in general in life. And that's, don't make an assumption that someone's on the other side.
Sure.
Or don't make an assumption that someone is on your side. But go into all conversations with an open mind and open heart and hear where people are at. You can solve so many more problems that way than deciding that you're at war with one another. And I think that, the authenticity of this movement in the extreme diversity of why it is that people want cannabis legalized is unique.
Sure.
And I think it gives the movement even more power. I do think that, if you look at a map of the United States, of states that have legalized, you can see that they're red states and blue states. This isn't a Democrat versus a Republican thing, but somehow in Wisconsin it has turned into one.
Sure.
And I have an awful lot of people who ask me why we haven't been able to get this done despite other states legalizing overwhelmingly, right?
Sure.
And ultimately, it really does come down to the fact that government in Wisconsin has been really divided due to highly gerrymandered maps. And I know that, these are big words and sometimes people feel like I'm making an excuse as to why we can't cross the finish line. But there are an awful lot of topics that people in Wisconsin want us to be addressing in the Capitol building that we're not addressing, that are supported by over 70% of the people of Wisconsin. And when you've got over 70% of the people of Wisconsin in agreement on something, that's a pretty strong mandate.
Yeah.
Cannabis is right there on that list.
Sure.
So I do have a lot of hope that we're getting closer and closer to actual reform in Wisconsin, thoughtful reform where people actually have to come together, simply because we're going to have maps. That's a given right now here. What those maps look like, we're not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that is going to add some pragmatism to this conversation and help us get across the finish line.
I think it's going to have a lot of folks that have been able to kind of, just my general, again, I'm not super great with politics as everyone knows, but I'm trying to learn and take it in. But it feels like a lot of people have been able just to, I'm going to get elected, and they don't have to necessarily give an opinion on policies. And it does seem like things seem to hang up a lot as far as trying to get bills passed and stuff. And just my hope, and it sounds like what the people that are in it for the right reasons would come to find is, when you actually have a fair map, you have to actually give some stances and make some changes. So me as somebody who's voted mainly Republican in the past, I'm also looking forward to opening the correct kind of a map, because I might have voted mainly Republican, but I also didn't have the education, or it's a lot of times it's for how people are raised. And I just feel like being able to come here as a normal person and be able to sit down and talk to both sides of the aisle, it's really helped me realize what I realized a few years ago, which is you don't have to vote one way just because, you know what I mean?
Well, we should have Republicans that support this bill in this building.
Sure.
Because I know that there's Republicans that support this bill outside of the building.
Definitely.
But unfortunately, at this point, none of them feel the liberty to sign on to the bill based on the message of their leader.
Sure.
So that makes the conversation really difficult.
Sure. We're trying to change that, so stay tuned on that. We've got, we touched base on that one. We touched base on that one. We touched base a little bit, but was there measures that you have included in your bill to ensure the safe and responsible use of cannabis? Obviously, like you said, just because you tell people wear a seatbelt doesn't mean they're going to, but if you could just maybe touch on a few things that you had in there to help with.
Yeah. I mean, it's important that we honor local control. So in this bill, it does allow local communities to approve citing in the same way that they would approve the citing of a liquor store in their community or a tavern. There are provisions in the bill that require educational components for the people that would work at a dispenser as a bud tender.
Sure.
That's a fun word.
I like that word.
And there are provisions in the legislation. There's so many that address public safety, but the packaging. You don't want want the cannabis to look like something that you're kids or your nephews and nieces or neighbors who want to eat it. You know, an awful lot of people choose to ingest cannabis through an edible, through a gummy. And when kids hear, gummy, I want a gummy, right? Because they think about the little bears.
Right.
But making sure that we're doing it in a way that provides protections.
There is some good packaging out there too, because that's why I keep my Leatherman on me, because sometimes I can't, that one lid, oh my goodness, I don't even know what.
It gets challenging,
it does.
right? But, you know, additional protections would also be protections in regards to expungement.
Yep.
You know, I see that as something that we need to be thinking about.
Sure.
And that maybe most people wouldn't be thinking about, you know, local protections and how it is that you keep communities safe. But at the end of the day, if we get this bill passed, if what you're doing today would be legal and you did it yesterday and you were charged with a crime, that should go away.
100%.
So we have provisions in the bill for nonviolent misdemeanor offenses, just automatic. You don't even have to apply. Automatic.
Okay.
If they're higher level offenses, then there's ways to petition for that to be off of your record. But did you know in some states, and actually in Robin Boss's bill, people that have a cannabis-related offense are not allowed to be involved in the industry? To me, that's goofy, right? Because these are people that are probably pretty passionate about the industry.
And if you wanted to know, if you wanted people educated on it, those would probably be the people that, in my opinion, should be like towards the top of the list.
That's right. So, that's right.
Yeah, that's goofy. Right on. We've got, how does Wisconsin's approach to cannabis legalization compare to efforts in other states as far as where we're at right now with things? Is it common, well, you said Wisconsin's a little unique, but is it common that basically there's a bill that starts, and obviously you've been working in amending it for some time now, and that is super confused. I mean, I did politics, right? So I'm this guy, but understanding politics and knowing that sometimes it's this side versus that side, unfortunately. But when it comes to what else would you be doing really to get legalization to happen, or is there something that we the people, I don't know, there's got to be something we can do with the majority of the state and try to get these voices activated to be able to help, because something just feels like Wisconsin is missing how to bring that pressure to those who are afraid to say that your bill is a good bill.
Yeah. That's a complicated question. Certainly, you know, I have ideas, but even with our conversation and our ideas, the only way that the change happens is in this building.
Sure.
So the bottom line is, if you're represented by someone who doesn't represent your values, then you should change their face. Vote them out. Run for office yourself. Sure. Find someone to run for office and support them. But, you know, for too long, people have said during the election cycle, yeah, I support cannabis reform. And then after they're elected in the building, they do nothing.
Sure.
And people's attention spans or the ability to claw back that information, it gets challenging when you've got like your regular life going on. Your kids get sick, your boss gets crabby, your car breaks down, you know, you've got an anniversary to celebrate, your kid turns 26, whatever it is, right? So being able to provide clarity and reminding folks who are the elected officials that it is their job to represent the voices and the values of people in their community, and not their job to be uber disciplined behind who their leader is.
Sure. I agree with that.
That's important.
I agree with that. We're going to keep on that. And well, the other idea is that kind of made sense. I just want to make sure that from your standpoint, this would be a good thing, is to try to find people that are able to attend listening sessions for their elected officials.
Destigmify. I mean, have the conversations every opportunity that you can. So I know I'm in my district at least once a month with an official listening session where I advertise it to my community and I invite people to come in and join me. On top of that, I do additional outreach into the community. Not every senator does things in the same way. But, you know, find, especially now that we're going into an election year, I think you're going to see more people in their communities. Meet them where they're at. If this is a conversation that they're uncomfortable with because of stigma, having folks that are coming in, and remember what I said, like, don't judge, don't assume that they're with you or against you. Go in there and be thoughtful and tell your story from your heart. Be authentic. Don't be angry. Don't be overly exuberant, but just like, these are the facts. This is the reality. That's how you remove that stigma. That's how you educate the other people in the room. When they see you as someone who is thoughtful and truthful and coming at it from a sense of compassion and desire to lift up all of their neighbors, they're going to be able to sense that, and the elected official will as well.
That's awesome. I'm gonna remember that and share that with like everyone I meet, because that makes a lot of sense to me.
You know how many times I get emails from people that are telling me I'm a twat waffle, or I'm some sort of terrible person, or a phone call with someone who is judging the way my voice sounds, or what color clothes that I'm wearing, or someone who's going to threaten me because I took a vote that they didn't appreciate. That doesn't help change hearts and minds. That just entrenches people where they are.
And that's unfortunately what seems to be. So I don't know what social media has done to some people, but yeah, it's even like with the page and trying to tell people like this isn't, if we're in this together, it shouldn't matter who we voted for in the past. We need to work together to be educated together. We can't just come in and say, oh, you voted that. This is taking it back down to what is politics to us and how do we understand it, and who are the people that represent us. Let's talk to them. And if they don't talk to us, that tells you a lot about what they're doing or not doing.
Well, I would encourage people also to think about like the umbrella of personal liberty, because this really falls under an umbrella of personal liberty and really increased safety. That's how I look at this bill. I think it increases safety and it honors people's liberty. What other issues might fall under that same umbrella, right? Like I know many people are a one issue, like they have the issue that's going to be the hill they're willing to die on. Sure. But I think if people were able to expand that and think about other things, that why is it that you want cannabis legalized? If you can think of other things that fall under that umbrella, then you can also talk pragmatically, like holistically, this is why you need to listen to me. This is why we should share space. This is why we should continue our conversations. Because if you're only talking about cannabis and people have their mind made up there, it's really easy for them to dismiss you.
Sure. No, 100%. And that's where, just taking the complete lack of like, there's just so many people that are ill-informed, especially in Wisconsin, because it just, when I was trying to find like groups to join to kind of like help with the word about cannabis and what it does for people, that's when I kind of realized like, I don't really know that there is much out there right now. And that's where like, I'm focusing on cannabis, but also realize it's a lot more things. But I know just the connections I've made, especially over the last couple of months and stuff, like, yeah, I'm the cannabis guy, but by all means, we still got a lot of other issues.
That's right.
But it's just interesting that something like you said, that so many people support in the state and so many people benefit from the use of, and it's still this hard to get that topic passed through. So I don't know what would happen next, and I'm sure cannabis, once it does get legalized, like I don't know where I'll end up, but I'm just realizing a lot about helping people just realize what we're doing when we vote. And when I started, I had no inclination that would be what I'm actually doing, but that's kind of what it's really starting to turn into. So,
well, there's every election cycle, there's more than one example of an election that has been won or lost by one vote.
True.
Right. Yeah. So literally, of the people that are watching,
right,
and listening, every single vote matters.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm working on a little slogan. I don't know if it's going to be like smoke the vote, vote to smoke, vote to agree. I don't know. I'm going to come up with something.
I bet you're going to get some suggestions.
Oh, yeah. We'll get some out there. These guys
in the comments now.
Yes, dropping right. She's catching on. That's awesome. How can local entrepreneurs and small businesses benefit from cannabis legalization in Wisconsin?
They already are. I mean, they're benefiting from the Farm Bill, but we could expand that benefit with legalization. Wisconsinites right now, as we mentioned multiple times during this short conversation, are driving to other states. Mm-hmm. That's taking away businesses in the opportunity for business in Wisconsin. So whether we're talking about farmers, or we're talking about production facilities, or we're talking about storefronts and distribution in the state of Wisconsin, there is so much opportunity for more economic stimulus in our state than what it is that we have right now. And in fact, the shops, the CBD shops, the majority of them that are in the state of Wisconsin right now, they want more rules, they want more regulation. So the bill as drafted that I have put together would benefit them as well. Sure. It would provide them with the protections that they are asking for. How old does somebody need to be before they walk into one of these establishments.
Sure.
Is that clear right now?
No.
No, it's not. Is there any parameters about packaging? No.
I'd like to winter.
Yeah.
And I like how you have it outlined in your bill where they should be able to just be able to look at whatever it is and know what is in it that's going to affect you as far as potency and terpenes and effects. So,
and I know we're going to learn more, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like once cannabis is rescheduled and independent researchers and universities are actually able to study this plant. We have the Ellison lab here at the University of Wisconsin, and they're studying hemp and doing a lot of research into the history of cannabis and cannabis prohibition and the potential as we move forward. Would there be a special strain here in the state of Wisconsin because of our environment and our soil content? And there's so much excitement about what can be, and whether it's in farm fields or main streets or in laboratories. Like, we are missing out on so much, and it is all based on, I think, misinformation at this point and fear that is really unfortunate. We need to be a little bit more earnest and willing to see that these 24 other states that have legalized haven't fallen off the face of the earth, right? They seem to be doing all right. Yeah. But we can also learn from them about, like, if you were to do it again, what would you do?
Right.
One of the things that Colorado didn't originally have in their legislation was an educational component for kids about cannabis, because after you legalize, it's very different than the program that probably kids are getting with the DARE program.
Sure.
They went in, they amended their bill and put in protections and provisions when it came to education components within schools. Wisconsin can learn from all these other states. We don't want to be like, oh, we're going to do it like Oregon, or we're going to do it like Ohio. We want to have it the Wisconsin way.
Yep.
But certainly we can see what works and doesn't work, and polish it up and make sure that we're lifting up and protecting all the people in our communities.
Yes. Exactly. It shouldn't be it still is an unfortunate thing that it's taken this long, but at the same time, we need to make sure that it's the right way and it's super, okay, well, great. There's a lot of information out there. What do you need me to gather for you? I will find whatever I can. We'll bring it to the table for you. And that's what we're trying to do, because it's just, again, Wisconsin's always been unique, and I could just, with the farm fields and everything and just how passionate, it seems like the generations of the farms, like the name stays the same. It just goes from one generation to the next in so many cases. And it'd be really neat to have I can't even imagine the difference, like you look at IPAs around here and that kind of stuff. Like, it's your own little story, and it's just cannabis has always been kind of a social thing, and I just really think that it would be really cool to see what these families how they approach it, and if they want to kind of start their own strains, or it would be so cool. We need to make it happen. It's got to happen. Could you imagine a farmer's market and it's like cannabis and the farmers that grow it?
I have dreams about having a cannabis fair.
Sure.
Right? So you've got honeybee cannabis there with their drinks, and you got herbal aspects there with some of their edibles
the pre-roll for pre-roll station.
Their little station where you can order what you want, and maybe you've got a chef in the corner that's making some infused snacks that you can purchase as you're shopping, and there's someone over here that has skincare products with hemp and cannabis in that, and people can just go around and have access to it and learn about all these amazing small family businesses that are in Wisconsin that have carved out their niche of their industry. They're waiting. They're ready.
I'd still like to hear, they are definitely, and I'd still love to hear I realized when I was working in the stores that there'd be a lot of people that would come in that are just like their first time walking into anything with cannabis, and the unknowns that they have. And I'd find what worked best for me was getting just that personal level of just trust me on this, let me put you in a situation. I do not like going to Lambeau Field anymore because everybody's obnoxious. Every pass is, are you kidding me? What a piece of... And I'm just like, so what it's like watching a Packer game. Now imagine if they only sold cannabis, it would just be like, oh, we'll get them next year, man. No big deal. Like we missed the playoffs, whatever. It's all good. Like, but that's the truth. And like when you talked about like this carnival or this fair, like I just see a bunch of happy people.
Yeah.
And as long as you have like some kind of a setup where I could see like Ubers going up a lot, because if I could go, I'd stay home to consume because there's still that stigma and there's
Oh, you need to be careful on the roads, right?
Yeah.
But how many beer festivals are there
Exactly.
across the state of Wisconsin?
Right.
That's pretty dangerous.
Right.
And we allow a lot of latitude for alcohol consumers in Wisconsin.
Sure.
I don't want to make us be a prohibitionist state, but I want to make sure that alcohol consumers are doing it in a safe way, not only for themselves, but for their community.
Bingo.
And right now we're missing out that with the cannabis industry. Just think about, like, on that same front, we could be like a venue. People like a destination venue for people, whether it's weddings or even corporate meetings, with like after the meeting is over, right? Because right now, after a corporate meeting is over, everyone goes down to the bar, right? Like,
I've had visions of the barns when we had our little like getaway to the corner of the state of Wisconsin. We had a small wedding and this barn, and I was just, from that day I was just like, man, if people could just hang out in a barn or in a cornfield, and gosh, it's just so fun to be around people, and you get so creative. And again, when you're doing it responsibly, but it also definitely with the medicinal, like it's crazy that we are where we are.
yeah, it's a problem.
On that note, what are the next steps for your bill, and how can we, the supporters, assist in moving it forward? I know we're working on gathering the signatures right now with the petition. What else can we be doing to do anything to help?
Yeah, I mean, if people want to sign on to either your petition or the petition that my office is circulating, that is helpful. We will be distributing those to leaders here in the building.
Okay.
It's unfortunate that this legislative session looks like it's coming to a close. Speaker Voss has decided he wants to close up shop. He's not doing the 15 years, right? I mean, we've been elected to do the work for the people of Wisconsin, and I'm here literally ready to do the work, and he wants to go somewhere and do something else, which is too bad. But good things happen for people who wait and who work hard. So we continue having these conversations. It's an important election year in Wisconsin, so figure out where the different people on your ballot stand on issues that matter to you. Do your research, reach out to them, hold them accountable, and at the end of the day, make sure you're voting your values. And after you vote in the election, make sure that those elected officials know that you're continuing to watch them, that they're not getting away with just saying that I'm going to do this during their campaign. Right. That you're going to stay on them, and you want to help them be successful to a promise that they made to their community during that legislative session. Governor Evers has really grown on cannabis policy in Wisconsin. When he was campaigning originally, he didn't know what to think about this. He was a little hesitant, and to the point that he talked about maybe non-binding referendum questions or something of that sort. And then in his very first budget, he put a medicinal cannabis provision in. Sure. Yeah. That was stripped out by the majority party here in the Capitol building, the Republicans. 2 years later, he tried again with full legalization. Again, stripped out. He did full legalization again. So we'll see what's in his budget. We'll see. We have the opportunity not only for my bill that I continue to put out, but the governor has embraced the legislation that I have drafted, and he actually has taken that policy and put it in his budgets, and I imagine he will continue doing that too. So remember to say thank you to folks who are also working hard about things that matter to you. We're not here to get kudos and accolades, but considering the amount of skepticism that goes into the work we do, and some of the negative things that people say, it's also helpful when people say
thank you. That's good to know. We'll definitely make sure we do that. We're working on the map, showing who represents and who the senators are in each district and stuff, and kind of waiting here to see what happens with the maps.
Yeah, it's gonna get messy with the lines changing, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, definitely want to make sure that we can get that information to people, so we know. I know for like even me, the couple of years ago when I went to find, I was like, who is my representative? And then there's like, right down the middle of Green Bay, it was split. So I was actually reaching out to the wrong person.
Our community.
Yeah. So we'll try to keep everything as educated as we can on that topic. What advice would you give to others advocating for cannabis legalization?
I feel like we've talked about that. Be kind. Share your personal stories. Be authentic.
Because it can be with people around you too. What I've noticed
not just your elected officials,
right.
but your friends and neighbors they also might be confused, and there might be some taboo in their minds about whether or not this is a safe thing to talk about.
Sure.
And I think that really, being able to highlight how cannabis reform would make Wisconsin be more safe and more prosperous. And, we are actually protecting our kids with this policy. We're protecting our driving on the roads. We're supporting Main Street businesses. We're addressing racial disparities. We're increasing revenue. These are things that really cross partisan issues. They cross the political divide, and they're things that I think when people sit down at the kitchen table and talk to their friends and family, those are the things that matter most.
Yes.
Right?
That's right.
And I think that we've dotted those I's in this legislation.
Definitely. And I think that helping...
Don't fall for the rhetoric.
What was that?
Don't fall for the rhetoric.
I think it's a neat way to put it too, is just so I love wearing this because it kind of allows me to do that, where when I'm out in public, people, there's a lot of people that show support, and like just today I stopped at the gas station on the way here. The guy just said, "Oh, where'd you get that?" So I just had like 10 seconds because we're kind of on a time and whatever. So I just, so we're actually headed to the Capitol, and he's like, "Dude, can I shake your hand?" I was like, "Yeah, for sure." He's like, "This is," so it's just like hoping to get these people to realize that all I'm trying to do is, same with the politicians, like before I would throw people under the bus, I'm trying to reach out to them to see what their stance is. And that's what we got to do with our neighbors, because this should not be a politically divided topic. There's just a lot. I don't know of anyone that I've met yet that their concerns weren't able to be addressed, or there's not facts to show them. Like, I understand, you want to beat up people upside the head and be like, no, it's fine, just go with cannabis. But there's just so much information out there on what it's done, the history of hemp in Wisconsin, which I'm working on a big binder of a bunch of old articles and stuff. Just keep the education going with your neighbors and keep the learning about the plant. There's starting to be more and more studies, like you said, the university and everything. And this is what we know now about it, was super restricted, like you said, tests and studies. It'd be really interesting to see where things go from here.
Yeah, it's an exciting time.
It is. It definitely is. If you could communicate directly with Speaker Voss and other opponents of your bill, what message would you want to convey to them?
I have spoken directly with Speaker
Okay.
Voss and other folks who are critical of this legislation, and I continue to say, this is going to pass.
Sure.
It's going to happen, and whether it happens the Wisconsin way or it's because it happens at the federal level, Wisconsin would be better off if we did it under the umbrella of the Wisconsin way. We put a lot of work into this and taken into consideration a lot of critics' concerns. I think it's important to take into consideration critics' concerns. But ultimately, we want a bill in Wisconsin that's going to lift up Wisconsinites, not a bill in Wisconsin that's going to open the door to Uber special interest groups that are out there.
Yeah.
And, I think we've seen that in other states where big money comes in and they really benefit. And we have a real opportunity here to support our Indigenous community, to support communities that have been traditionally harmed by cannabis prohibition, to lift up women and minority-owned businesses in the industry, in order to lift up our small towns and real opportunity. This, isn't like an easy button to fix all the problems in Wisconsin, but certainly it goes a long way to showing Wisconsinites that they all matter, and that for very diverse reasons, this is the right thing to do. So let's not give up. Let's keep moving.
Well, and is there like feedback on what the opposition's concerns are with your bill, or is it
every single one of them has a different reason why they are opposed to this legislation, right? Like some of them it's reefer madness, some of them it's gateway, some of them it's children's usage, some of it's impaired driving. Clearly it's people that haven't done the deep dive into the issue and understand, as you said, that many of the concerns that these people have are actually addressed in the legislation.
Well, and I'm assuming that unfortunately it's not, when somebody is like that opposes your bill, I'm assuming they don't come in here and say, hey, here's my concern, can we work on this together? Sometimes
they tell me in a little bit more detail, and then we amend the bill. But that's normally not coming from lawmakers. It's coming from a mom who shows up at the listening session who's worried about the people in our community, or worried about impaired driving, right? And then we just need to reassure them that we've taken that into consideration and give them examples of how it is that we've done that. In this building, it's really easy for the majority party to just say no, and they don't have to have a reason behind it because they've had so much power for so long. But every opportunity that I get to talk to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, I mean, there's some of them I tease with them and say, well, when are we driving to South Beloit? I'd like to show you one of my favorite businesses in the area so you can get a sense of it. And, you know, there's other people I tease them about their stock portfolios. I'm like, you won't sign on to my bill, but I bet you're investing in cannabis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there's other people that, you know, they're on the front lines of wanting to do criminal justice reform in Wisconsin, and I take the opportunity to explain to them that, you know, this will go very nicely hand in glove with the work that they are doing there. But, you know, I think one of the important things is knowing who it is that you're talking to, and realizing, is it important for me to lean into the facts? Is it important for me to have a little humor? Is it important for me to just keep reminding that I'm here?
Right.
But overall, at the end of the day, it's the good people of Wisconsin that are our bosses.
Sure.
Anyone that has an office in the building, the good people of Wisconsin are our bosses. And it is our job to listen to them and to empower them and to bring their voices into this Capitol building.
Sure.
And when we have legislators that are not even willing to have the conversation, and maybe you've had that happen to you, where people just were not, nope.
Right.
Well, then they are not representing the will of their constituents. And their constituents need to lean in and remind them of that.
Sure. And so I can't remember if I had touched base with your office or not, but what I realized was when I stopped out here and started meeting with a couple different folks and just kind of hitting up doors in a row just to say, hey, this is who we are, this is what we're with. I meet up with a lot of the aides, and it's interesting when I walk in, a lot of them will go, oh, perfect timing. And I'm like, what? Well, we got a guy in a constituent that keeps asking us about cannabis. And so I start talking to these people, and my passion and just, that's just me. So I'm like, yeah, what's the questions? And we start talking, and the amount of times that I've been told, because now I ask, and I ask people, so have you guys been like, nobody comes in here to talk to you guys about cannabis? And they're like, no. And that's where, for me, it's like, wow, I might need to get like an apartment down here in the summer or something. But right now we're kind of taking like a weekly trip and trying to schedule as many meetings as we can, because it's like, well, I'll do whatever I can to facilitate information to these people. Because if it truly is a lack of education, which is really the only thing I can think of, and that's not to sound rude to people, but because again, it could have been a part of how you're raised, and your parents were put through that, the reefer madness, the war on drugs, so that's obviously what you're going to be taught. So I don't think people should be afraid to ask questions, or people that are in office should be afraid to tell their constituents, like, hey, I just don't really know this topic that well. What is your guy? I don't know why everyone's so.
Right.
What's that?
They could. The
Yeah, teach,
constituents
right.
can teach.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I will say that, behind closed doors, one-on-one, there's a far more of the Republicans that are elected in this building support this bill than don't.
That's what I'm getting.
But they're very disciplined.
Sure.
And their leadership is telling them that this is not something they should dip their toe into.
Sure.
That said, we talk about staff in this building. Staff in our offices are an extension of us. They are amazing. We cannot do our jobs without them. But they're pretty young, typically. Not all of them, but typically. And they want this done. They're not the elected officials.
Sure.
But
No, I felt that. Felt that for sure. Well, with that, I want to thank you again for your time. I think we were able to touch on a lot of great subjects, or a lot of different avenues about cannabis, about legalization. Just ask that you keep doing whatever it is, whatever drives you to keep doing what you're doing, because it's noticed by a lot of people, especially the people in the cannabis legalization world, and just even the amount of businesses that I go to that I see like a picture of you were there, or just the different articles that we keep up with. It really opened my eyes to politicians and what can actually be done. So, and I know that's on behalf of a lot of people. So I think we need to get a few thank yous written up, because I see them in the comments, but obviously it's hard to like over the. I think we definitely need to make sure I'm sure you get to hear thank yous and stuff, but we just appreciate you a lot.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Well, and I'm glad we're here, because I know that the most dangerous thing about weed in Wisconsin is that it's illegal.
Right.
And we're going to keep moving forward, because it's only a matter of time before it's done.
100%. Well, with that, I think we should probably let you get back to work. We got work to do as well. So appreciate everybody who stopped out to check out the podcast, and make sure we keep on our elected officials, keep doing our education, keep spreading the word to your neighbors, and let's keep moving things forward.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye, everybody.